Hello. My name is Jesus Castillo from rubyguides.com, and we have ourselves another quick live stream today. It's pretty hot right here in Spain. As you might know, I'm from Spain. I just came back from buying some groceries, bought some salad and apples and stuff, avocados. Also bought some stationery, some basic stuff, some pens and things like that. So there is that, in case you want to know what I did. Yeah, so let's do some Ruby. I have some ideas here. We can talk about that. Oh yeah, Unary operator is the title. What's a Unary operator? That's a strange name. I think it's like that. Unary. Well, unary means one. Binary means two, right? So let me just open IRB so I can show you what I mean. So unary, that's one, right? That's what unary means. So we will see the application of this into code. And binary, you might be very familiar with that. It's two. Bi is for two. So what does that mean? How do we apply that? Well, there are binary operations and unary operations. So a binary operation is the ones you will typically do in your like arithmetic, right? If you do 1 plus 1, big mystery of what that is, right? No, not really. 2, well, that's a binary operator. Why? Because we have two numbers. We have 1 and 1. That's binary 2, right? So that will be a binary operator. What's an example of another binary operator? Well, 50 times 2. Another binary operation. We have two values. One value, two values. Binary, two values, right? So that's what we mean by binary operations. Binary operations. Now, what would a unary operation be like? Well, if a binary operation is two numbers or two objects, in this case I use numbers, this could also be strings, right? It could be something like, here's a little trick for you if you know you can do that. If you multiply a string times a number, what happens? Well, let's discover this. Ta-chan. Well, you get a string which is made from these many copies of this character. So if we had, instead of A1, we get 5 times A1. So A1, 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 A1. Yeah, so that's what we get right there. Of course, we can see rubyguides.com, which is my website. And if we put a little thing right there, we can get it repeat many times. Of course, you will notice I end with the pipe character. We could solve that in a different way, which is to do this. Then we get this, and then here's a cool thing. I think let's try if this works. Oh yeah, that's gonna work. Look at this. Isn't that cool? How is that for a Ruby trick, right? Let me do that again. What the heck is going on in here? You might be wondering. Well, a few things. First, let me take a sip of water because we are doing this live, so there's no editing or anything. And by the way, feel free to say hi on the chat if you're watching this live. Hey, yep, there we go. Have the chat on another screen, so if I'm reading from another screen, you will know that that's the chat. So yeah, so what's going on in here? Well, let's break this down. We can break this down. First, this is a string, right? Why do we know this is a string? Tell me. Well, because it has these quotation marks on both sides. That tells you it's a string, right? That's very basic, but it's good to know because if you don't know these basics, then you can do more advanced stuff. So one problem is that a lot of people try to do more advanced stuff because they think they need more advanced stuff to understand more basic stuff, but it doesn't work like that. It's always basic stuff is the base. It's called basic for a reason. So basic until it's completely boring, and even beyond, until you can recite it and tell it to your mother or whatever. Right? Basics. Then you can do more advanced. You can explain the basics to anyone that doesn't have programming foundation, programming knowledge. Then in fact, teaching is a good way of learning your stuff, right? Okay, so that string, we found that. And then what's this? Well, this is an array. And again, we can tell this is an array because it has square brackets. Notice that the syntax in Ruby, every time that you have like an opening bracket or opening something, the Ruby, the programming language, expects to find the opposite, the closing, right? Otherwise, what happens? You get a syntax error. We don't see it here because pry or IRB, it waits for you to type. So when you see the star, it's waiting for you to type. You see there is star. It's because it was waiting for me to close this, right? So let me do that again. And this time I'm going to close the quotation mark. I'm going to close the array. And as you can see, there is no star. So that if you wonder what this star means, that's what it is, right? I believe in Pry you also have this. And if you're inside this star mode, you can exit pressing Ctrl+C. So that's a little trick for you, extra tricks. Today is free tricks for everybody. Okay, so there is that. I think that's very helpful to know. And so if we go back here, we know that we have a string, and the string is inside an array. And what's going on in here? Well, this number 5, which is an integer, and it's being multiplied. As you can see here, by the array. So the first thing that happens is this, right? Things in programming happen in steps. They don't happen all at once, they happen in steps, right? So that's important to remember as well. So this is the first thing that happens. We get this array, the contents of this array, 5 times. That's why we get the URL, the name from my website 5 times. And of course, this could be anything else. It could be cat, it can be color, it can be anything you want, just using this for example. And okay, so how do we go from this to this? Notice that this doesn't have the ending pipe character like it did before here. You see that? Hope the font is big enough for you so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so there is that. So the next step is we're doing another multiplication. So you can see here. So what does this do? Well, the important thing to know is this is working on, not on the 5, but on the result of this. So the fact is, what's happening is we got this. So hey, pay attention here, because this is important. We got this plus an empty string or dash or the pipe character, any character that you want. Okay, so you see that, and we can add spaces if we want. So that's what's going on. Nothing special, nothing magic, just understanding the different steps, the different components. how do you understand them? Breaking them down into their most basic, their most fundamental pieces or parts or sections. Okay? Hope that makes sense. If you have questions, feel free to let me know. So we have John Alucard. Hi, I get on time. Hello, how are you doing, John? Hope to have time to get to the end of the stream. And we have Lucas. Hey, Jesus. Hey, Lucas. Hope you're having great time. Hope you're feeling well, doing well. Let me know what do you like about Ruby? What are you working on any projects? Anyone that's watching from right now live? Tell me, are you working on any projects? Or tell me where you're from. Tell me something. Talk to me. Okay. So we have that. And of course, as I said, we can change these numbers. We can do 3, and we can change this like that. We can change this, right? None of these parts are fixed. So this part, you might not know what this is doing. In fact, it's another Ruby trick. And what's really going in here is the following. Let me show you. I'm going to show you this like a magician showing you his tricks. So they say that if you see the trick, this is not that interesting. Well, as programmers, we want to know the tricks, right? So we can actually do them, understand them. So here's what's going on. Join this. This really what's going on. Ta-da! This is your magic trick. Feel free to clap. So this is what's really going on when I do this. Does it look like that? Right? Does it? But if you know that methods in Ruby can be these operators, in fact, here's what's happening. Right? You see what I did here? I put this dot. This dot is for methods, for calling a method, right? So if I do r times size, this dot is for calling the method size, right? So that's what's going on in here. It happens that the asterisk is not a special operator, it's a Ruby method. Let me demonstrate that for you in case you don't believe that. We can do, it also works with the plus symbol, with the minus symbol, any other symbol. Let's do it with the time symbol. We can do like O. And now I have the time symbol, right? To call it is going to be a little strange here. We have to use some times 1. And we get nil because the method is doing nothing. But you see, I was able to define the method, no syntax error, and I was able to call the method. And by the way, this end is a special way, it's a special meta-programming. So if you wanted to know meta-programming, here's a little bit of meta-programming for you. It's a special meta-programming method that allows you to call another method. You can call the method by a symbol, this is called a symbol, or by a string, and this is the method arguments, right? So you will notice that if I try to call this times or asterisk method without the argument, I get an error. And what's the error? Argument error, wrong number of arguments, right? And very important about errors is that you want to read them. Don't just go, oh, I got an error. Just throw your hands into the air and have someone else figure it out by copy and pasting the error into a Facebook group, for example. Now, you as a professional Ruby developer, if you want to become one, or if you already want and want to try to improve, it's very important that you stop and read errors carefully. Why? Because errors communicate. Communicate, it means they transfer information. Communication is, I know something, I want you to know the same thing, right? That's what communication is. I know a piece of information and I want you to know that same information. That's communication. It's very important. That's what's happening here. An error message is a communication from Ruby. And what information is being transmitted, what information is being given to you, is few pieces of information. First, we have the type of error. This case is an argument error. Why is that helpful? Because there are only a fixed amount of errors, a fixed amount of error categories. So as you become more familiar with this category of errors, then you will build like a mental catalog of all of the possible errors, right? And then when you see argument error, you will go, oh, I know what that is. I have seen this before. I have seen this argument error before. Now I know what this means. I have a general idea of what's happening, right? That's why it's very important to read errors and get familiar with them. By the way, in my Ruby book, you don't have to buy it if you don't want, but I have a chapter where I cover errors. So it's like a mini catalog of common errors. But if you don't want to buy it, that's fine. You can just play with Ruby, and when you come with a new error, take like a piece of paper or open Notepad and write it down, and then Google it and search, what does this error mean? And you will find information. And then you build your own catalog of errors. And that's very helpful, I think. Because even as an expert Ruby developer, even after you have many years, you will still get these errors. Even if it's not your fault, it can be from a gem that you're using, that the gem is wrong, you don't know it, the gem has a bug and an error, maybe. It's often a problem with your code. That's the first thing. Then it might be a gem. And very unlikely is the programming language. So it goes in this error. This is like a hierarchy of error possibilities, right? Your own code, right? That's number one. That's like 90% of the time. Let's say 90%. Gem that you're using, gems or other software, related software. Let's say it is like 9%. And then your programming language itself is probably less than 1%. Let's say 0.1%, something like that. There. Interpreter. That's the programming interpreter. Yeah, to match these numbers up, I have to do something like that. If that match, something like that, right? So when you're looking for errors, first, don't blame your programming language or your gems. First, you want to look at your own code, right? I tell you because as beginners, sometimes you think, oh, it must be something else. No, first look at your code, then you look at something else. And you can also get more hints in here. It's not only the category of errors. When you know the category, it comes with some extra information. So remember, communication is, I know something, or Ruby knows something, and it wants to tell you that something, that information. It wants to transfer the information to you. This case is, okay, if I'm Ruby, the Ruby interpreter, okay, oh, your code is not quite working. I think this is the problem. It's this kind of error. And this is the extra information I got for you. Apparently, you have the wrong number of arguments. And indeed we did, because we needed 1 and we given it 0. So there you go. with this alone, you could, with this information, you can fix the error if you didn't know it. And you have some even more information, which is this right here. This has several names. It can be called a stack trace. Stack trace, that's a common name, or error trace, or like it says here, traceback. Has many different names, but the idea is that you can see where the error started, right? It gives you file numbers, very important, file names and line numbers, sorry. So it gives you file names and file numbers. As you can imagine, if you have many files with many line numbers there, then having this information is very helpful, because you have some pointers to look where the error originated. So there is that. So any questions so far? Okay, we have Srijan, I'm reading the chat on another window. So, hey Jesus, thanks for the stream. Well, thank you for watching. Just thought letting you know that weekly newsletter you send out is deleted twice every time in my inbox. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Did you sign up twice to the newsletter with 2 email addresses maybe? Maybe that's the issue, that's why you get it twice. Then we have, I was trying to do sysadmin and checking Perl, but some OpenBSD told me to check Ruby, and I love it, still love it. Very good, very good. I like that you love Ruby. And we have Lucas, he says, I'm from Poland, not really working on a project right now. Okay, rather playing with Ruby to understand it better. Very cool, very cool. Let me know if you do some project. So yeah, so now let's go into the title. Let's wrap this up into the title of this video. So we started saying, okay, this is called binary operation, right? Because we have two operators. So we have operators and operations. I think that's correct. Operation, which will be this. That's the operation. These are the operators. We have two is a binary operation. We have one is a unary. So what does a unary look like? Here it is. Ta-da! What's this? Well, this is the minus method with a string. And this has very specific, you can also do this. You see that? So this is kind of advanced Ruby, because these are the unary operators. They are unary because there are only one object. Here are two objects. Here is one object, the string. Then you can also, of course, do that. But in this case, how does that work? Well, these are methods. And to define them, there is a strange way to define them like this. Like that. Let's return one. Or not. Like this, maybe. Let's see. These are not used very common, so there we go. That's how you define. That's the strange special syntax to define your unary methods, right? So inside a string, you can imagine that kind of method being defined inside the string class. And if I remember, I think that gives you frozen string. Let's find out. Yeah. So you see, you can freeze objects. This is another, sorry, but this is another slightly advanced topic. But basically, you can froze strings, which basically means you can't change them. They start frozen, just like you can froze some water and you can change it unless you thaw it, right? Well, that's kind of the idea here. String can be frozen to avoid changes to it. And one way to freeze it is with this unary operator. As you can see here, I can create it like this. Then I can ask if it's frozen, and I get true. So that's unary operators for you. Ta-da! So I hope you like that. And if you like that, you will also like my many other videos on the channel and the articles on my website, rubyguides.com, so that's my website. I'm the only author, so there are no only authors. I don't pay people to write these articles or anything. I make everything myself. Okay? Just drinking some water. Let me know if you have any questions before I go. Otherwise, we're done for today. Thanks you very much for watching. So it seems like we have no question. We have 7 people watching, which is pretty good. So do you want me to cover anything before we go? Because I didn't prepare any more content. Well, we can talk a bit about this. How about the max? There is these methods that end with by. It's like max by, sort by. These take a block and allow you to more specifically say how do you want that maximum number. So we have like this list of numbers. You can get the maximum, right? And in fact, a lot of people don't know this, but you can do max 2 and get the 2 maximum numbers. Another way to do that is you go to sort and you can get the last 2. So let's do sort. Let's take 2. That gives you the 2 smallest, and you want to the 2 biggest one. I think we can do that. Yes. There we go. How about that for a bonus teaching? Hope to see metaprogramming soon. Well, I already showed you a little bit. Is anything in particular you want to see about metaprogramming, John? I show you the send method. So what is metaprogramming? A lot of people get confused about what metaprogramming is. So when you see metaprogramming, you don't know you're seeing metaprogramming. So metaprogramming is not some kind of magical one I pull out my pocket or whatever. It's just it means programming at another level. Where basically it's kind of difficult to I have a pretty good definition in my book, which basically comes down to metaprogramming at another level. What does that mean? Well, usually we can create methods like this. With A, we can say def A in the source code that creates a method. But I can also create a million methods like this. And can do like an array of A, B, C, D, E, E, F. And I can do each. And then I can create a method for each of those. That's what I mean. I can do things that normally will take Ruby syntax to do with regular Ruby methods. So outside the syntax, metaprogramming means you can do things that normally you do with syntax, but outside the syntax. And that's an example. So in here I can do m, and I can do define method. By the way, I don't recommend using metaprogramming because a number of reasons. Usually it's a bad idea to use metaprogramming, but it's good to know how it works. Of course, this has to be %w. And here we need the define method with a block. Whoops. Let's say that this is going to print the method name. Missing something else. Let's find out. Whoops. There. I think now we have, yes, there we go. Now what happened? We have methods. We have a method named A, we have a method named B, we have a method named C, we have a method named E, and each of these methods return the name of the method. And how I did this? Not using define whatever, so that's syntax. I use a method to define a method. So that's metaprogramming. How about that? So I hope that helps. But again, try to avoid using it. You want to understand it, but try to avoid using it. The reasons are kind of complicated. But basically, it's going to make your code easier for you to create, but harder to understand later. That's the gist of it, the basics. It's going to make your code easier to make, but harder to change. And we don't want that. We want to make the code easier to change. And it's harder to make, well, that doesn't matter, because the code is going to change later. So there is that. We have Srihan, I think working Ruby Twitter Jam. Do you have any ideas on how can I exclude an exact phrase from the search? Can I exclude keywords like apple, cat, etc. by unable to exclude hello world? Well, that's a good question. That will probably require me to see how you're using it. I don't know how I need to see the code. It's hard for me to see. Probably try putting single quotation marks like this around the words. It's hard. I can't give you general advice right now because I don't see the code. I need to see the code to give you more specific advice. But try using single quotes like this around your words, whatever they are. Uppercut, like that. So single words is different, single quotes is different than double quotes. And again, for a number of reasons that I won't cover right now. But try this, and if not, I don't know. Again, I have to see the code to see how you are excluding. Maybe try a regular expression. A regular expression looks like that. And we have Lucas. Everything is clear. Thank you for the video. Well, thank you for watching, and thank you for participating in the live chat. I appreciate that. So I know that I'm not just talking to the to nothing. It's good to know that there is someone listening. Okay then, this is how I'm using it. You mean with a single quote? You will have to provide to give me like the actual code. Zirijan, if that's your name, the actual an actual line of code that I can see that I can help you more specifically. Because I can't. You see the code, and you have information that I don't. I need that information, right? It's like what I was talking before. Communication. Communication is transmission of information, right? You have information that maybe you don't even know that you have that information, but during the process of communication with another person, with another human, right? You have to be able to transfer all of this information, so I can help you, so I can understand what's going on. Anyway, I'm going to make dinner right about now, and it's also pretty hot in here in my room. I don't have an AC. If you want to make like an AC font, something for because it's pretty hot right here. Also, it's about dinner time for me, so there is that. So thanks all for watching. Remember to click the like button for me if you enjoy this. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you already subscribed, thank you. And visit my website, rubyguides.com. rubyguides.com. Thanks all for watching. I will see you in the next video.